This is the third part of my truly amazing, absolutely phenomenal speech for the generals. The generals are saying, "Sir, this is the best speech we've ever heard. It's strong, it's brilliant, and it's going to go down in history as one of the greatest speeches ever, maybe the greatest. Everybody knows it. We're investing tens of billions of dollars in modernizing our nuclear deterrence capabilities like never before. And we've begun construction on what we call the Golden Dome Missile Defense Shield. It'll be the most sophisticated in the world. You watched it do well until they had some problems at the end, with a little bit of a lack of ammunition. Defensive ammunition. But they've got that taken care of. But I tell you, what we're doing is so good, and we deserve it. You know, we help other countries with it. We don't have it ourselves. And Canada called me a couple of weeks ago. They want to be part of it. To which I said, well, why don't you just join our country, become 51, become the 51st state, and you get it for free. So, I don't know if that made a big impact, but it does make a lot of sense. It actually may, because they're having a hard time up there in Canada now because, as you know, with tariffs, everyone's coming into our country. We have more investment than we've ever had before. $17 trillion coming in as an example. In 4 years, Biden didn't have $1 trillion. We have 17 trillion more than that in 8 months coming in. And they're coming in from Canada, Mexico, from Europe, from all over. Auto plants. Everybody's coming back to the United States. Nationality. Under my budget, we will be expanding the US Navy by at least 19 ships next year, including submarines, destroyers, assault ships, and more. And it's going to be much more than that as we go along, because we basically don't build ships anymore. We do build submarines, but we don't build ships. Do you know the Second World War? They were freighters and different types, but we were doing a ship a day, and now we don't do ships. And I'm not a fan of some of the ships you do. I'm a very aesthetic person, and I don't like some of the ships you're doing aesthetically. They say, oh, it's stealth. I said it's not. So an ugly ship is not necessary in order to say you're stealth. By the way, the B-2 bombers were incredible. That is stealth. They went into that. I was with General Kane, and every bit where they would go to war. But we're watching them go in, and they were totally untouched. They were not seen. They were literally not seen. They dropped their bombs. They hit. Every single one of them hit its target. It was total obliteration. CNN when we came back. Fake news. CNN, oh, the camera just went off. You know that camera. Every time I mention they turn the camera up because it's never good. They said this is a problem, but I don't blame them. You're better off keeping it on. But they have some scammer reporter who started saying, without any knowledge, said he may not have hit the targets as well as they thought. It may not have been obliteration. He did hit the target. They got to give us a little credit, but it was obliterated, and it turned out the Atomic Energy Commission said it was obliterated. Not only did they hit the target, they had their chutes. And think of this year, way up in the sky. There was no moon. It was dead dark, couldn't see a thing. You couldn't see them. But they had, I guess, a beam going right into these chutes. Every single one of those bombs went right down those chutes into a granite mountain. I think it's the last time they're going to build air chutes. That is, airships that were nice, beautiful. They were meant for us. But it was total obliteration. And now they give us credit for that. But these people were phenomenal. I tell you, for the Air Force people here, you can be very proud that B-2, we just ordered a lot of new ones, and updated ones. But let me take the other ones. Let me tell you, they couldn't have worked any better. So they flew for 37 hours total back and forth. No stops, no nothing. We had 52 tankers loading them up. And that's a job I wouldn't necessarily want too much. Flying a tanker loaded up with hundreds of thousands of gallons of fuel, I don't know if I'd do that. You upset? I asked a question. What happens if it gets it? Sure you don't want to know about that, right? I don't want to know about that. But those guys, they just hear us. They're incredible. It had them all to the Oval Office. We had to be 2 pilots. And a lot of the people, even the people that took care of it, new ones and updated ones. But let me take the other ones. Let me tell you, they couldn't have worked any better. So they flew for 37 hours total back and forth. No stops, no nothing. We had 52 tankers loading them up. And that's a job I wouldn't necessarily want too much, flying a tanker loaded up with hundreds of thousands of gallons of fuel. I don't know if I'd do that. You upset? I asked a question. What happens if it gets it? Sure, you don't want to know about that, right? I don't want to know about that. But those guys, they just heroes. They're incredible. I had them all to the Oval Office. We had to be 2 pilots. And a lot of the people, even the people that took care of it. And the maintenance people just as important. We had them all to the White House, gave a big party, and Alan brought some of them into the Oval Office. But on top of all, this will deliver a hard-earned pay raise of 3.8% to every soldier, sailors, airman, Coast Guardsman, space government, and Marines. Something you weren't getting from the past administration. They did not treat you with respect. The Democrats. They never do. Not only are we rebuilding our great strength, but for the first time in years, my administration is actually using that strength to defend the core and vital interests of America. And very simply, we are putting America first. And I have since I've been elected. I've always put America first. It's sort of simple, you know, when you think it's. My campaign was run on common sense, and we did great at the highest numbers ever received in terms of districts. You know, they have a broken up 2,500 versus 525. We won every swing state. We won the popular vote. We want everything. We want everything. You have to take a look at the map. It's almost entirely red, except there's a little blue line on each coast, and I think that's going to disappear too. We did really great, and part of it is because of our success with the military, the rebuilding of the military, the vote that I got from the military. And they were the vicious people, you know, that we have to fight just like you have to fight vicious people. Mine are different, a different kind of vicious. But they spread all these horrible, you know, they made up statements and said what I said about everything, but even about the military. But fortunately, the military didn't believe it. It's hard. You know, they make up a statement that they said. You say we had 25 people that said he never said that 25. We had 25 affidavits. And they said, well, we're going with it anyway. You know, these sleazebag. Yeah, that's why the press is really losing all power, because people aren't believing it. We need an honest press. We need borders. We need borders. We need an honest press. We need fair elections. I mean, those 3 things. And we don't have an honest press. We have a really corrupt press. But we fight through the corrupt press, and the people understand you have to do this stuff a lot. You have to go on television a lot because you can't get a fair shake.